Hello, welcome to the stream. There it goes. Decided to do something a little different today. Oh Lord, hold on. Decided to do something a little different. Okay, there. Right. My playback. I bet to mute my TV for my playback. This is all very experimental. Just trying something new today. Gonna be talking about Red Dead Redemption and my experience playing the game, my thoughts on the franchise, and where it can go. Obviously, there'll be spoilers ahead. Um, anytime, anytime I'll get into spoiler territory, I'll pull up this slide. You guys will get to see my face here in a couple of seconds. So yeah, anytime I mention anything spoilery to the story, I'll pull this up. I can actually get rid of the feed or the playback on my phone since I have it on my TV. Switch. Alright, is it switching? There it goes. Hi. My name is JT. You finally are seeing the guy behind the channel. If I keep looking up, I'm looking at the TV, make sure everything's going fine. Let's see. Get rid of this notification. Okay. Let's first talk about. Well, before anything, I'm going to talk about just overall the series. Red Dead Redemption 2, or the Red Dead Redemption series, is a restaurant, obviously. One second. Here, let me pull this up. Again, this is a experiment. Pull this up. So I've been better prepared. Alright. Had to charge or plug in my laptop. I noticed it was getting pretty low. Okay. There. Alright, so the Red Dead series. It all started with a little game called Red Dead Revolver. I have not had the opportunity to play the game. It's a game that which was available to stream or download it, whether it's on PlayStation Plus or maybe even Steam. That'll be a game I would like to play eventually. I know a little about it, but as far as the Red Dead Redemption part of the series, it's more of, from my understanding, more of a spiritual sequel. Implications, okay. More of a spiritual sequel or sequels. Um, see, those who have played the game or the games are aware that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption, the game. Um, Goes into the origins of everyone and how, or the events that led up to uh, the original game that everybody loves. A little synopsis of the game. I'm going to read directly from IMDb. The synopsis is: in 1899, a gang of outlaws led by Dutch Vanderlyn fell a robbery and now need to fight against the law and travel across the wild country of America. And when problems threaten to tear the gang apart, lead enforcer Arthur Morgan must choose between his ideals or the man who raised him. So, just leading off with that. Okay, so Red Dead Redemption 2 follows Arthur Morgan. He is our main protagonist in the game, protagonist. Um, he is followed, or the gang consists of Arthur, of course, John, Abigail, their son Jack, of course, Jess Vanderlyn, Bill Williamson, Javier Estrella. Let me pull up all the characters so I don't forget any. I'm just talking about the Vanderlyn gang. So Dutch, Vanderlyn, Arthur Morgan, John Morrison, his wife Abigail, their son Jack, Bill Williamson, Charles Smith, Hosea Matthews, Javier Escuella, Josiah Triani, Karen Jones, Kieran Duffy, Lenny Summers, Leopold Strauss, Mary Beth Gaskill, Micah Bell, Molly Osei, who is Des's girlfriend through the, I'll say, first 2/3 of the game, Mr. Pearson, Reverend Swanson, Saul McGuire, Susan Grimshaw, Tilly Jackson, one of my faves, Uncle, and the badass Sadie Adler. Okay, the story follows them as they are on the run. The game, spoiler territory. Hold on. Spoilers. So, Sadie Adler joins the gang at the beginning of the second game. Fix my camera a little bit. She joins follow after. Well, she was pretty much taken in refuge by the gang after they stumbled upon her and her husband's cabin up in the mountains. Um, a rival gang, the O'Driscolls, killed her husband, Jake, if I remember correctly, and pretty much kept her prisoner. Uh, they were rescued by Dutch, Arthur, and Micah, and that's how Sadie joined the gang. The game, the reason why they are in the mountains because they are on the run, following a very failed heist in Blackwater, and the guy they tried to steal from hired the Pinkertons, which, if anyone's history nerds, they will know Pinkertons were the downfall of Jesse James. So, looking at like historical connections, there's one there. Um, so they are hunting them across the fictionalized version of the U.S. They start out in the mountains to pretty much lose the Pinkertons that are on their trail. Jack, or not Jack, John attempted to leave. Apparently, he has a habit of disappearing for a while. He had to be rescued because he was attacked by wolves, which explains the scars on his face. Eventually, they leave the mountains and go to their first hideout, I guess you would say, and a horseshoe overlook near the town of Valentine. And from there, they get into all kinds of shenanigans. This is where Arthur starts to, for lack of a better term, collect money for old Leopold Strauss, who is pretty much a loan shark. He'll loan money out to people, and whenever he feels like the money is due, he sends Arthur out to collect that money by any means necessary. And that is important for the rest of the game because, again, spoiler alert, spoilers ahead, he has to collect money from the Dowds family. Forgot the guy's first name, but he was sick. Arthur, their number on him. But what we didn't know at the time, until much later in the game, is that that man had tuberculosis, TB. And while Arthur was beating the crap out of him, the guy exchanged blood, coughed on Arthur. If I remember the point in the game specifically, it happened while he was beating him up into Arthur's face. So, if anyone knows anything about TB, at least at the time in 1899, it was very spreadable. Um, People could catch it from anyone that had it uh, in close proximity. With how violent Arthur was with Mr. Dow's, uh, he ended up getting infected, and he didn't know he had infected until much later in the game. Um, Again, I had to bring that up because that's an important plot of the story. Um, then from there, Cornwall, the guy that they stole from, or was attempting to steal from in Blackwater, caught up to them in Valentine, and since he had the Pinkertons on their trail, they ended up having to find a new camp location. They ended up going to what's the name of it? It's out by Dewberry Creek. What was the name? Anyways, it was in southern Lemoyne. So they leave the state quotations of New Hanover and end up in Lemoyne, which is fictionalized version that is more representative of the South. Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, that area. They're near the town of Rhodes, not far from Saint Denis, but we'll get into Saint Denis a little bit later. And somehow Dutch thought it was a good idea to get between two rival families and play both sides. Kind of create a discretion. Heard that this rival was based on some money. Whether that's true or not really guaranteed. But yeah, so that doesn't end up going well. Eventually, they get both sides catch on. The Greys had a shootout, killed Sean McGuire. After that, the Bethrates kidnapped Jack and sold him to more or less a gangster in Saint Denis, which is the fictionalized version of New Orleans in the game. So they end up going to Saint Denis to get Jack back. But first, kind of skipping a little bit, the Pinkertons catch up with them, offering anyone freedom if anyone would hand over this Vanderland. Of course, no one took it, but because the Pinkertons found them, they had to find another hideout again or another camp, which ends up being Shady Belle, an old, plantation type house in ruins, further into Lemoyne and the swampy bayou right outside of Saint Denis. Anyways, they have to do these tasks for Bronte, in order to get Jack back. Uh, Long story short, Bronte ends up setting them up on uh, a heist, and Dutch didn't take too kindly to that. So they end up getting revenge on Angelo Bronte, end up kidnapping him from his house after killing all his men. Uh, then Dutch more or less fed him to an alligator in the swamps of the area. From there, they figured out they need money to get out of the country. So they try to do this one final heist at this bank, like a national bank, whose bank had to lubricate. So things go incredibly wrong. Hosea and Lenny are killed during it. John gets captured and sent to the prison Seneca. I want to say it's Seneca. Anyways, it's on this island off the coast of Lemoyne. Anyways, the gang, what gangs that was taking part in the mission, in order to escape, they had to get on a boat or hide out on the boat. The boat sailed out and unfortunately got caught up in a storm. It caught on fire, and the gang ended up washed ashore on the island of Garma off the coast of Cuba. They are stranded there, taken prisoner. They had to fight their way out. They helped the rebels there, got back. Of course, when they got back, the gang moved to another camp in Lakay, at least for the time being, because, of course, the Pinkertons were on them. And, oh, forgot, what's his name? Not Sean. Do I have what the character? The one that was the O'Driscoll, or they say he wasn't officially confirmed. Kieran. O'Driscoll's killed him. Of course, this is right before the big robbery. Again, I'm jumping all over the place. So yeah. After they got back, Pinkertons found them in Lakay. And again, spoiler warnings for the game. Lakay they were able to find them in Lakay, because of Micah. Because as we find out at the end of the main story, that Micah ends up being a rat and talk to the Pinkertons about everything the game was doing. But that's much later. So they leave Lakay. They look for another hideout further, a little bit up north. It's New Hanover. I think it's still considered New Hanover. I don't have the map in front of me. but they end up not far from Innsbruck, a mining or a mining town up north. They end up uh, camping in near a cave, Beaver Hollow. From there, Dutch gets crazier. At one point, uh, kind of like he tried to do with the rivals of the families near roads, the Grays and the Breathways. He tried to use the indigenous people, use their anger to try to start a war with the U.S. Army. That ended up going horribly. Of course, Arthur hated it, or hated all that part, and I completely forgot to mention the important part. After getting back from Grama and rescuing, right before they rescued John from prison, um, while trying to go meet up with Sadie and Saint Denis to figure out how to get John out of prison, Arthur ends up having a bad medical episode, I guess. A stranger helps get him to a doctor, and that's where we find out that Arthur contracted TB from Mr. Dow's. And throughout the rest of the game, as long as you have, depending on where your honor is, always try to have a good honor. You interact with the Dow's family. Mrs. Dow's ends up going to prostitution. Their son ends up working in the mines of Amsberg much later on, but we got to mention that to catch y'all up for the important part, or the ending of the main story. Anyways, they end up in Beaver's Hollow. Bad plan on Dutch's part. Of course, at this point, Dutch has lost it. Molly is killed by Miss Grimshaw because Molly says he talked to the Pinkertons. But of course, we later find out that's not true, so saying that to piss off Dutch. See, Micah becomes more and more erratic. Micah gets closer into Dutch's ear, and the gang ends up. At this point, they start leaving. Arthur kicks out Strauss because Strauss is the reason he sent them, and then he's dying, and Strauss was preying on the needy and was taking advantage of them to do what he was doing. So Arthur kicks him out. Members of the gang start leaving, disappearing. The only gang member we don't know what happened to is Kieran. It's following Kieran's death. She ends up becoming an alcoholic, and then she just disappears from the camp one day. We never see her again. We assume she drank herself to death. But anyways, Trelawney leaves the Reverend, who was a drunk and like drugs and all that, was sober. He left. Um, Eventually, all that was left was Micah, and he brings in two goons: Dutch, uh, Arthur, Sadie, Charles, Javier, Bill, and then, of course, John, Abigail, Jack, and Tilly. Um, they go on this heist, this one last heist, they said, train heist. John gets shot off, presumed dead. Dutch and Micah were supposed to go back for him. They said he died. We find that that's not true later on, but they finished the heist. Arthur and Sadie we're going back to the camp when they come across Tilly and Jack, and they find out from Tilly that the Pinkertons had kidnapped Abigail, and Arthur was planning to Dutch to let's go get Abigail, but he was like, John's dead. No point in doing it. Let's have Jack be an orphan. So Arthur and Sadie wasn't having any of that. They sent Tilly and Jack to meet at Copperhead Landing, was near the spot where they met up after they rescued John from prison. Then Arthur and Sadie go into not Annesburg, Van Horn to rescue Abigail. That's where they find out from the head of the Pinkertons, Milton, that Micah is the one talking. And Abigail kills Milton. They escape. Once they got to safety, Abigail and Sadie parts ways with Arthur, saying their goodbyes because Arthur is finally confronting Micah and Dutch. At this point, everyone's trying to leave or pack up to leave. What's left, anyways. Susan Grimsaw really signs here, but fortunately it's her demise. She heard about when Arthur tell them what was happening. She sided with Arthur, and Micah kills her, shoots her. Of course, John shows up, saying, "You left me, you shot me, or I got shot and you left me," plays an important part in the first game. Anyways, Pinkertons show up, they scatter. Arthur and John escape into the mountainous area, climb up a mountain. Arthur helps John escape, and Arthur stays back to fend them off. While he was doing that, Micah comes up and starts attacking him, and they battle out for a little bit. Arthur gets his ass kicked pretty bad. Right when we think Arthur is at least going to take Micah out with him, Dutch kind of puts a stop to it. Very sad ending for Arthur. he ends up planting that seed of doubt for Dutch, or at least Dutch knows that Arthur is being sincere when he says Micah is the rat. He's the reason why the Pinkertons are following. So Arthur or Dutch leaves Micah. Since the Pinkertons were showing up, Micah had to scatter like a roach. But anyways, Arthur ends up dying on that mountain, and then that's the end of the main story. Then we go into the epilogue, which takes place in 1907, so 8 years later, with John, Abigail, and Jack. It pretty much shows you how they end up where they are in the original game. After some time and a brief split from Abigail, because Abigail and Jack left, John ends up buying some land, building a house, building a ranch. He ends up reconnecting with Sadie and Charles. Sadie ends up working as a bounty hunter. Eventually, they get wind of Micah being around, and they always said if they could find Micah, they would kill him. So that's what they end up doing. They end up finding his whereabouts, going after him, much to Abigail's attachment. But they end up killing him with surprisingly help from Dutch. End up finding a boatload of money to pay off the debt buying the property and the house. John and Abigail officially get married, and that's where the game ends. And the scenes that play during the credits, see the Pinkertons kind of like following their trail, and all that. So the game ends, or at least one of the last scenes that play is the Pinkertons arriving at Beester's Hope, overlooking John and Abigail and the family. So, to cut to Red Dead Redemption 1, that takes place, see, end of Red Dead Redemption 2, that was 1907, so 1911, so 4 years later. Turns out the Pinkertons captured Abigail and Jack and are forcing John to hunt the remaining outlaws of the game. What's at this point is, or at least the remaining outlaws that are still in their, I guess, jurisdiction. So you have Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and Dutch Vaderland. So the first one he goes after is Bill. Bill ends up shooting John, leaving him for dead yet again. And he is rescued by Bonnie McFarlane. She helps him get well. Once he's better, he goes off to New Austin, to Armadillo, and works with the sheriff there, and eventually tries to take out Bill. Once they finally sees Bill's hideout at abandoned Fort Mercer, they find out that Bill left for Mexico to join Javier. So from there, John goes to Mexico. He finds Javier. Finds out he's working for the oppressive government there. Ends up killing him. Brings his body to the Pinkertons, Ross, who was Milton's partner in the second game, or in the prequel. Because Ross is the one making John do all this. They kill Javier, or I chose to kill Javier. They wanted him alive, but they gave me the option to kill him, and I did. It's my first playthrough, so that's what I did. Then we go after Bill, who was working for the general, and who was a horrible person. So I killed the. So when we did a seize on the general's, I guess, compound, I killed the general, and then the leader of the rebels in Mexico killed Bill. So I killed the general, and he killed Bill for me. So with that taken care of, we ended up back in Blackwater, hunting down Dutch. Of course, Dutch took on a new gang. Eventually, Dutch gets killed, or doesn't get killed. He was a coward and jumped to his death. But yeah, so once those three were gone, seemingly John was off the hook. Abigail and Jack was returned to him, and he went back to living life on his ranch in Beach's Hope. Until one day, they showed up. They killed Uncle. John helped get Abigail and Jack and helped them escape. And they get into a shootout, and John ends up dying. Then the game picks up. I guess this is the original game's epilogue. They buried John at the end of that, and then it picks up 3 years later in 1914. And Jack ends up hunting down Ross after Abigail dies. I had Jack kill Ross's family because why not? Ross was evil. So I killed his wife, his brother, and then eventually him. And that's where the story ends. Undead Nightmare, pretty fun game. Standalone. If you like spooky zombie stuff, it's good DLC for you. Pretty much John is trying to find a cure to the undead walking about because Abigail and Jack gets turned, and he has to go into New Austin, visit a lot of similar places we visited in the game, a lot of similar mechanics. Ends up stopping the plague, at least for the time being. returning a artifact that the Mexican government stole, um, and ends up saving Abigail and Jack and the rest of the people that became undead. And of course, the game ends with John, after dying, resurrecting as a zombie, which was pretty cool. I will say the series is probably one of my favorite. I would say it's my favorite story-driven game. I would say The Last of Us is pretty close, but at least with the open worldness, especially with Red Dead Redemption 2, I think it bumps it a little bit more. Where I see the franchise going, I could see a nice DLC for Sadie or Charles. Um, I know a lot of people want to see more of Jack, but I don't know if that's really something Jack would do. Because to me personally, I think Jack just wanted to get his revenge, and once he got his revenge, he gave up the outlaw like life and got all his life. That's where my head canon's at. Um, I, I've seen other people talk about maybe doing another prequel, like Red Dead Redemption 3 being like when John and Arthur first joined the Van der Linde gang, but don't know if another prequel would do good. Like, it would be nice to see them, but it'll probably work better as a DLC for me personally. Um, I would like to see more of the beginnings of the Wild West era. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 and 1 is, of course, the bookmark, or the bookend of that era. So something could be completely different characters, different story, but seeing the rise of the Western frontier, I think that would be more interesting than yet another prequel for focusing on John and Arthur being teenager joining Dus's gang, where we know how everyone's story ends out or turns out. But anyways, that's all I have as of now. Um, Thanks for joining. Thanks.